Welcome to a quiet voyage into the heart of the medieval world. Settle in and allow yourself to drift back through centuries. As together, we wander through moments and objects steeped in history and atmosphere. Let the hush of evening surround you as the stories and secrets of the Middle Ages unfold, one gentle discovery at a time. In the centuries before the rise of carefully codified soccer, Europe's fields and village greens echoed with the rough energy of early ball games. These games, played across the British Isles and the continent, bore only a passing resemblance to the ordered sport we know today. Far from stadiums and formal boundaries, matches were sprawling affairs, sometimes lasting for hours and crossing through streets, open fields and rivers, drawing entire communities into their drama as town rivaled town and parish vied with parish. These games often had deep roots in the seasonal rhythms of the year. Bound to religious festivals and communal gatherings, matches were sometimes sparked on feast days, the ball flung into a jostling crowd to be fiercely contested by scores or even hundreds of participants. Rules were few and fluid, with the main aim simply to deliver the ball to a goal, perhaps a distant landmark, or the boundary of another parish. Kicking, carrying, throwing, and even more forceful tactics were common, making these communal games raucous, sometimes dangerous, but always inclusive, offering a momentary equality to all who joined in. As medieval society grew more ordered and towns became more populous, these exuberant and chaotic traditions began to face challenges. Authorities, concerned about disorder and the disruption to commerce and daily life, occasionally issued edicts and ordinances that sought to contain or even ban the games. Yet the appetite for these contests endured. Local traditions began to refine the rough edges, gradually giving rise to more structured play, firmer rules, and the slow emergence of club-like organizations. The concept of fair play crept in, shaped by the tension between communal freedoms and attempts at regulation. It was from these wild gatherings and untamed competitions that the roots of modern soccer and other football codes emerged, not through an abrupt transformation, but through slow evolution, shaped by the enduring values and rhythms of early communities. What took root across fields and village greens was the idea that play could unite as well as divide, quietly sowing the seeds of shared culture and future sportsmanship amid the fervor of competition. Central to these lively gatherings was a humble yet remarkable object, the medieval football itself. Unlike the precisely engineered balls of today, the medieval version was often an inflated pig's bladder, sometimes housed in a crude leather casing for added longevity. Its patchwork surface betrayed its makeshift origins, slick in some places, rough or pitted in others, always bearing the marks of earnest hands and local creativity. To hold such a ball was to grasp a piece of the land's resourcefulness, light yet uneven, redolent of earth and tanned hide. Villagers, craftsmen, and mischievous children alike would gather in an open field or twisting streets, eager to cradle the ball, send it rolling beneath their feet, or hurl it into the tumult. The ball was not merely kicked or thrown, but was at times carried, fiercely protected, and wrestled over, enduring the unrestrained excitement of these contests. There was no call for mown fields or painted lines. Any green or cobbled space became an arena, and the rules shifted with each gathering. In these games, the football ball was both symbol and participant, central to the social chorus of festivals and feast days, where laughter and shouts echoed against stone walls. The competitive camaraderie of these matches blurred social lines for an afternoon, inviting all into the fray. Yet the games could be fierce, clashing villages, sprawling melees, a battered ball at the center of it all, surviving the ordeal of a day's play and emerging more patched and misshapen, or even burst by evening. Within every scuffed seam and hastily tied knot, the medieval football ball revealed the story of its time, assembled from what was available: bladders from the butcher, scraps of leather from the tanner. Through moments of laughter and chase across muddy ground, the ball became much more than an object. It forged connections among people through shared play, elevating simple pastime to cherished collective exuberance amid the rigors of medieval life. Across England's verdant fields and in lanes bustling with life, folk football appeared as a remarkable and unruly spectacle. Before professional sports, football was a communal event, tightly woven into local rhythm. Festivities and feast days brought entire communities outdoors, ready for an event that was part play, part ritual. Its origins lie deep, influenced by older pagan traditions and evolving anew in every locale. Rival halves of towns or competing villages created their own shifting customs and rules, with the goal to drive a leather-encased pig's bladder or a roughly stitched ball towards some distant tree, gate, or church porch. The game's wildness belied its simplicity, with crowds surging through fields, rivers, and streets, all swept up in the shared excitement. Folk football endured repeated attempts at suppression. From the 14th century, royal proclamations articulated concerns over the game's violence, its threat to life and property, and its tendency to distract men from archery practice, critical to national defense. Yet each prohibition brought only reinvention. The game adapted and persisted, taking on new forms as it navigated the changing landscapes of towns and daily life. Paved streets, urban expansion, and stricter regulations gradually tamed the rough games. Nonetheless, echoes of these gatherings linger in traditions like the annual Shrovetide Games, the communal spirit and competition surviving as part of the nation's fabric. In the everyday lives of medieval communities, the football ball stood as both a tool and a symbol, born of local necessity and ingenuity. Its creation was a humble craft. The butcher's shop provided a pig's bladder, cleaned and dried, inflated through a tied stem. When possible, tanners supplied leather coverings, sewn over the bladder with waxed cord, each stitch preserving the ball against the ravages of muddy play. A medieval football was never quite round, the leather stretched taut in some places and sagging in others. Its touch revealed much, a certain slickness, a surprising lightness, the faint aroma of tanned hide and earth. In the hands of villagers, these balls became emblems of resourcefulness and the simple joy of togetherness. The ball's role in medieval football contests elevated it beyond the status of a mere toy. It presided over the village's festivities, drawing young and old, rich and poor, into spirited chase. On festival days, when the game was permitted, It served as the pivot of play, its misshapen form reflecting both the chaos and companionship of the sport. It was carried, kicked, or tossed, each rougher game sculpting the ball more, leaving it scarred and weathered, a living record of collective joy and competition. Medieval football's physical rituals were reflected in the balls themselves, objects that traced not just the contour of a village's games, but its social interconnections. The making and mending of a football-engaged craftsman and communities. The playing of the game created memories and rivalries, symbols of celebration and unity. As dusk fell and the day's festivities ended, the ball would be gently tucked away, the laughter it inspired lingering softly in the hearts of all who had played. Throughout Europe, the popularity of football and ball games led to continual evolution in the construction of the balls themselves. Pig bladders, cleaned and inflated, formed the pliant core and were encased in stitched leather, creating a sphere both more durable and resilient than the bundles of straw or cloth that had served earlier generations. This combination, born of necessity and practical skill, allowed the ball to survive game after game. Its tactile presence uniting communities through repeated contests. The humble leather football became a familiar weight in the hands of both children and adults. Fashioned by local tanners and cobblers, its seams were rough to the touch. Its surface sometimes flecked with the scent of cured hide. Its bounce was unpredictable, softened and misshapen over time. Yet it was a source of joy that bore the warmth of many hands and the stories of many afternoons. Upon every holiday and feast, the football drew crowds for rowdy matches, sometimes sprawling across muddy lanes and rough commons, engaging neighbours and strangers alike in spirited play. In its relentless passage from hand to foot and back again, the ball was a unifying force and a marker of shared identity. The tradition of community-organised ball games grew as medieval society became more structured. Guilds, associations of craftsmen and merchants began to organise ball matches for their members, intertwining recreation with expressions of solidarity and social status. These contests, often tied to annual feasts and public festivities, introduced a new degree of order. Instead of chaotic melees, matches gradually came to reflect agreed-upon conventions, transforming old pastimes into more structured expressions of rivalry and camaraderie. Organisation fostered predictability, setting the scene for later standardization and more formal sport. Just as the sound of leather striking earth on a holiday afternoon brought whole villages together in laughter and high spirits. In the tapestry of daily life, certain objects became quietly iconic, embodying the spirit of recreation, social unity, and craft. The medieval football ball, be it pig bladder, leather sphere, or studded construction, was such an artifact. To hold it was to touch history, its weight promising both mischief and gladness. Rough, patched, perhaps redolent of earth, it bound villagers and townsfolk together in communal play. The unpredictable bounce and texture, binding those present into a fleeting fellowship each time the game began anew. Within each match, local champions emerged, admired for their energy, agility, and daring. These figures became the focus of village pride, their feats recounted at gatherings and over fires. Celebrated athletes inspired broader social engagement, raising the stakes and joy of each contest, encouraging participation across boundaries of age and status. As civic authorities cautiously watch these gatherings, sometimes seeking to regulate or restrict their rowdiest expressions, the popularity and renown of local champions became still more cherished. Symbols not only of village spirit, but of the right to communal joy and shared storytelling. The materials from which balls were made varied across the continent. In some places, animal bladders remained the central core, inflated and tied off with care. Elsewhere, strips of leather were stitched and stuffed with rags or straw, creating lumpy, heavy orbs that still lent themselves to rough play. Wooden balls, carved by local carpenters from beech or oak, smoothed and oiled by many hands, formed the centerpiece of simpler games for children and adults alike. Each version carried the fingerprint of its makers, marked by chisel or awl. Each object a quiet testament to ingenuity and tradition. Even as these games blossomed into spirited revelry, they attracted the gaze and concerns of the medieval church. Spiritual leaders, wary of rowdy play intruding upon feast days and sacred times, issued edicts and prohibitions, urging that leisure should not disrupt the rhythms of prayer and devotion. The church's influence, joined by that of secular rulers mindful of public order, gradually tempered the wildest forms of the games, ushering in more disciplined and regulated versions that would, over the generations, become rooted in custom and tradition. Amid the swirl of social life, other forms of recreation flourished alongside ball games. Board games such as chess and backgammon crossed borders and cultures, transformed by geography, language, and religious influence. Chess pieces, carved from bone, wood, or ivory, acquired regional shapes and meanings. Game boards became treasured household objects. The rules of dice and card games shifted as they passed through market towns. The patterns of play reflecting the endless variety that characterized medieval Europe. Play, like language and law, responded to the needs and dreams of its practitioners, preserving a vibrant plurality that echoed through centuries of change. Festivals and tournaments provided even greater arenas for communal sport. On special days, town squares and meadows transformed into theatres of celebration and competition. Ball games, rough and unpredictable, became emblematic of festive life, drawing together the old and the young, the humble and the highborn. Lords and monarchs saw these contests as opportunities to display wealth and channel the energies of restless youth, while the games themselves remained a treasured part of communal and local identity. Over time, the seeds of these spontaneous celebrations birthed the rules and customs that undergirded more structured sports, transmitting the spirit of medieval joy and unity across the generations. As the evening mist crept over winding medieval lane, the echoes of folk football rippled still through towns and fields. Yet, even as the games retained their exuberance and unpredictability, the gradual rise of civic authority and the establishment of schools and universities began to press order upon their chaos. Written rules, agreed boundaries, and growing organization transformed wild revels into games with shared conventions. laying the foundations for the standardized sports of today. This slow codification reflected a changing world, more connected, more regulated, but still holding dear the memory of communal play and the beauty of shared celebration. Among the objects most beloved were the studded leather footballs, formed from thick-cut hides and reinforced with iron or wooden studs to withstand rough terrain and heavy use. The craftspeople who shaped them blended skill and tradition, the finished product marked by resilience and a certain elegance. The ball's firm surface inscribed with every impact and every muddy festival. These treasured balls at the heart of celebration and competition bridged the routine of daily labor with the rare delight of communal festivity. Their enduring legacy speaks not just to skill and toil, but to the irrepressible human quest for play, connection, and meaning. Thank you for spending this evening journeying through the quiet echoes of the medieval world. May the tales of the past settle softly in your thoughts and bring you gentle rest tonight.